Femi was every woman's dream, a tall, strikingly handsome man with the pockets deeper than most. His family had ensured that he never needed to work too hard. Money wasn't a problem, nor was his charm. He had it all. Women were pulled toward him, but none had captivated him like Mariam did back when they were in university. Mariam was the exact opposite of Femi. She came from a humble home, a close-knit family of 5. As the first child and daughter, she carried the weight of responsibility, striving to set a good example for her younger siblings. A brilliant student and a bookworm, Mariam had little time for relationships until she met Femi. He was the only one who ever managed to break through her walls with his easy smile and unrelenting charm. In no time, Femi had won her heart. They started dating and were already planning their wedding before graduation. Their wedding was a grand affair. Mariam's parents were ecstatic. Their daughter was not only married into wealth, but had also secured a well-paying job at a top company. With her new salary, she helped fund her younger siblings' education. Mariam and Femi's lives seemed perfect. They were the kind of couple that made people believe in happily ever after. 3 beautiful children followed, and with each one, Mariam's sense of security grew. Femi had been a good husband, or so she thought. He was attentive, caring, and gave her no reason to worry. To Mariam, life was perfect. But perfection can be an illusion. While Mariam busied herself with their family, Femi had a secret. His life took a different turn during their university years when he attended a birthday party with friends. That night, he met Amina, who was 18, wild, slender, and beautiful. Everything Femi found irresistibly tempting. It was meant to be a one-time thing. Amina was a fresher, and he told himself he wouldn't see her again. But one night turned into 2, then a regular affair. He fell deeper into the web of lies, setting up an off-campus apartment for Amina so he could visit her without being noticed. Years passed. Femi kept Amina hidden in his life while maintaining his picture-perfect marriage with Mariam. She was completely unaware of his double life. Amina, however, grew restless. She was tired of being the side chick and wanted Femi to herself. One evening, after yet another secret visit, she gave him an ultimatum. "I'm done being the girl on the side, Femi," Amina said, her voice sharp and eyes cold. "If you don't leave your wife, I'll find someone who will actually marry me." Femi was cornered. He couldn't risk losing his status or his comfortable life with Mariam. The only way out, he thought, was to do something drastic, something irreversible. He needed to fake his own death. Femi spent weeks carefully planning his exit. He orchestrated everything meticulously, making sure no one would question his sudden death. The day finally came. A tragic car accident, or so the story went. The news hit Mariam like a ton of bricks. Femi was gone. Mariam's world crumbled. Her in-laws, blaming her for Femi's death, swiftly took over his company. She and her children were left with nothing. The man she had loved, the father of her children, was gone, and now his family was stripping her of everything. With no inheritance and nowhere to turn, Mariam had to move out of the house. She clung to her children as the lawyers pushed her to leave what she thought was their family home. Mariam, please try to understand. There's nothing more you can do, one of the lawyers had said, his tone insincere. This is a legal matter. Tears flowed freely down her face, but she refused to break down completely, not in front of her children. I'll be fine, she whispered to herself, trying to believe her own words. Maria moved in with her parents, and her siblings helped look after the children while she took a low-paying job to make ends meet. Her life had changed dramatically, but she was determined to survive for her children. Months passed, and fate led her to a job interview with Dari, a wealthy investment mogul who had earned the nickname Mr. Dollar Dari for his wealth and business acumen. Dari had just fired his PA and needed someone reliable. When Miriam walked into the interview, Dari was struck by her beauty and grace, but what truly stood out was her determination. Miriam got the job, and over time, Dari began to see her as more than just his PA. He admired her resilience, her devotion to her children, and her calm demeanor, despite the hardship she faced. But Dari wasn't the type to believe in love. He had his heart broken once, and since then, he focused solely on making money and enjoying the pleasures it brought him. One evening, Dari asked Miriam to book a hotel for him, as he often did for his weekend rendezvous. This time, however, he asked her to come along under the pretense of needing her assistance for an urgent business meeting. Miriam hesitated but agreed, knowing how much she needed the job. They arrived at the hotel, but when Miriam asked about the meeting, Dari smiled softly. "There's no meeting, Miriam. It's just us." Her heart raced. She didn't know what to expect, but Dari assured her he only wanted to know more about her life. As the evening wore on, they began to talk, their conversation flowing effortlessly. Miriam told Dari everything about Femi, about her struggles, and how she was rebuilding her life. Dari was moved. For the first time in years, he felt something deeper than just attraction. He felt compassion. By the end of the night, Dari knew he wanted to be more than just Mariam's boss. While Mariam was slowly rebuilding her life, Femi's own world was crumbling. His health was deteriorating, and after several hospital visits, he was diagnosed with cancer. Amina, the woman for whom he had faked his death, had left him. She couldn't bear to live with a sick man and had run off with another guy. Femi's once thriving company was now falling apart. His family, who had been complicit in his fake death, refused to help him. He was penniless, sick and filled with regret. Karma, Femi muttered to himself as he stared at the empty walls of his once luxurious apartment. It always comes back. He was desperate and decided to sell his failing company to fund his chemotherapy. Little did he know that the buyer was none other than Dari. Mariam and Dari's relationship blossomed into something beautiful. After months of dating, Dari proposed, and though Mariam was hesitant at first, fearing that life would snatch away her happiness again, she finally said yes. The wedding day was grand, a lavish affair attended by business elites from across the country. Everything was perfect. Mariam, dressed in a stunning white gown, walked down the aisle with her 3 children, happily scattering flowers. But then, in the midst of the ceremony, Mariam's son, David, suddenly pointed at a man in the crowd and shouted, "Dad!" The guests gasped in shock. Mariam froze. She turned toward the man her son had pointed at, and her heart stopped. There, standing among the guests, was Femi. He was older, thinner and frail, but she recognized him instantly. Her dead husband was very much alive. Femi, now broken and filled with shame, could barely lift his eyes to meet Mariam's. Dare, confused and protective of Mariam, stepped forward, demanding to know who the man was. "Who is he, Mariam?" Dare asked, his voice low but filled with tension. Mariam couldn't find the words to explain. She stood frozen, her mind racing as 1,000 thoughts rushed in. Her dead husband, the man who had abandoned her and their children, was standing right there, alive and in the flesh. Femi's voice broke the silence, weak and trembling. "It's me, Femi, your husband." Gasps erupted from the guests. Mariam's legs threatened to give way beneath her, and she clutched her bouquet tighter, feeling like the world was spinning out of control. Dare's confusion turned into disbelief. "What kind of a sick game is this?" he growled, stepping toward Femi. "Mariam, is this some kind of joke?" Tears welled up in Mariam's eyes. "I don't know. I don't understand. He was supposed to be dead," she stammered, her voice shaking. Femi took a step forward, his eyes pleading. "Mariam, I can explain. Please. I made a terrible mistake. I was selfish. I was wrong." Dare's fist clenched at his sides, but Mariam raised her hand to stop him from confronting Femi. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Her emotions were a chaotic storm, anger, sadness, betrayal, and confusion all swelling inside her. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you do this to me? To your children?" Femi's face was etched with regret. He looked haggard, and his once vibrant eyes were now hollow and filled with sorrow. "I was a fool, Mariam. I thought I could live a double life, but it all fell apart. I made a deal with the devil, with Amina. I faked my death to escape, thinking I could start over. But it was a lie." "A lie?" Mariam repeated, her voice rising. "You left us with nothing. You let me believe you were dead, and I had to raise our children alone, penniless, while you were living with her?" Femi's head hung low in shame. "I lost everything. Amina left me. My family abandoned me. I'm sick, Mariam. I have cancer, and I don't have long to live. I came here today to ask for your forgiveness." The room was silent, except for the hushed whispers of the guests. Mariam's heart felt like it was being crushed under the weight of everything she was hearing. She had loved Femi once. He was the father of her children, but the pain of his betrayal was too deep, too raw. Dare stepped forward, his expression hard. "You think you can just walk back into her life and ask for forgiveness? After everything you've done?" Femi's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve it. I know I don't. But I had to try." Mariam looked at Femi, then at Dare, the man who had stood by her when she was at her lowest, the man who had given her hope and love again. Her heart ached with the decision she knew she had to make. "You can't undo the past, Femi," Mariam said, her voice steady now. "What you did, it broke me. It broke our family. But I'm not the same person I was when you left. I had to rebuild my life without you. And now I have someone who loves me and my children with all his heart." Femi's face crumpled with sorrow, but he nodded slowly. "I understand. he whispered. Mariam turned to Dari. Her eyes filled with tears. I choose you, she said softly. I choose the future we've built together. Dari, overwhelmed with emotion, pulled Mariam into his arms. The guests, who had been watching the entire scene unfold, began to applaud, though the atmosphere was still thick with tension. Femi stood there, broken and alone, as Mariam and Dari exchanged vows, sealing their future together. His chest ached not just from the cancer, but from the crushing realization of what he had lost: his family, his dignity, and the love of the only woman who had ever truly cared for him. After the ceremony, Mariam approached Femi one last time. Her face was soft, but there was an undeniable strength in her gaze. I forgive you, Femi, she said quietly, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. You'll always be the father of my children, but you no longer have a place in my life. Femi's shoulders slumped and he nodded. Thank you, he whispered, his voice hoarse with emotion. That's more than I deserve. With that, Mariam turned and walked away, hand in hand with Dari. Together, they walked into the future, leaving the shadows of the past behind them. As Femi watched them go, he realized that in trying to have it all, he had lost everything that truly mattered. He left the wedding quietly, knowing that he had been the author of his own downfall. Femi didn't live much after that. His cancer advanced quickly, and within months, he was gone for real this time. Mariam's children attended his quiet funeral, but she stayed home, choosing to let the past finally rest. Mariam and Dari continued to build a life filled with love, respect, and happiness. Dari adopted her children, and they grew up knowing that true family wasn't about blood. It was about those who stayed, those who loved, and those who chose to be there through thick and thin. As the years passed, Mariam reflected on everything that had happened: the love, the betrayal, the loss, and the redemption. She had come out stronger than ever, a woman who had been tested by life's hardest trials, but who had emerged victorious. Because in the end, love wasn't just about finding the right person. It was about becoming the right person through every storm, every heartbreak, and every triumph. And for Mariam, that was the greatest lesson of all.